Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Streaming Theatre, where we curate, live edit, and live stream play readings, theatrical works, gigs, and other creative projects. My name is Kevin Kemp. I'm the founder of the Streaming Theatre, and today we have our first ever live film screening. So obviously these won't be live edited, but I'm very excited. We have 3 short films by filmmaker Kee Ramsorrun, and Kee is also here to answer any questions that you might have about how he made the films and also how you might be able to get started in filmmaking. Very exciting. We'd love to hear from you, as always. So if you've got any questions you want to ask Kee, or if you just want to say hi, then you can put them in the live chat. If you can't see the live chat, you might be watching on the Streaming Theatre website. So just click the button down below that says Watch Live on Twitch, and then you can come and join us, which will be lovely. Now, you can support the stream if you'd like to with a donation. That would be amazing if you'd like to. Just think of it as a tip for the staff if you're on a night out or something like that. We will, of course, be sharing the tips today with Kee. So if you're enjoying the show, just throw him a little something, and I'm sure that would be lovely. You can click the donation button below me. Just choose 3 short films, screening and discussion with director, and that will go to this event. And if you can't see the button, just go on to thestreamingtheatre.com and you will find it on there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to introduce a very talented young man, and I'm also very lucky to say that he's been a dear friend of mine for a very long time now. Let's bring on Kee Ramsorrun. Let me find him. Hang on. There he is. Hi, Kee. How's it going?
Hi, Kev. I'm very well, thanks, mate. How are you? I
I'm very
love
well.
being introduced as young. I
Oh yeah,
love
mate.
it.
We're still
More of
young,
that,
mate. It's
please.
okay. We're gonna be all right. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It's always lovely to see your lovely face.
Dude,
And
thank you so much for having me.
I was on your stream, wasn't I, earlier this week?
Yeah, Tuesday we did a really fun stream together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was
really enjoyed
great.
it. So why don't you, for people that don't know you, just introduce sort of who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
So my name's Key, and I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for about 17 years now, and I've recently got into streaming. And I don't. I think of myself more these days as a content creator, and
Mm.
filmmaking is part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And we've got a few people saying hi. We've got G Cooper 80. Hi, Gavin. How are you? So lovely to see you.
Hey, Kev.
Live Dream Right. Hi. So lovely to see you.
That's
Um,
Eva, who regularly joins me on my Tuesday night streams.
oh, fun. Cool.
Brilliant.
Hi. 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 Okay, great. So sort of what we're going to do today is we're going to look at 3 of your films, aren't we? Sort of have a chat about how you made them, what inspired you to do that, and then hopefully you'll have some amazing tips to give people as well about about how to get into filmmaking and stuff. Oh, somebody else. Chris Tenchito. Hi, Chris Tenchito. Very nice to see you. Um, and
Hello.
hello. And that's about it, right? It's pretty chill. We're just gonna have a bit of a chat really today, aren't we? So
Yeah,
yeah.
man. I'll follow your lead.
Okay, great. So we're gonna start with a film
Kev,
called
can I just say, I really hope people ask questions because
mm,
sharing knowledge and sharing my thoughts and learning from other people, I think, is one of the most important things about being creative. So if people have questions, I love that.
yeah, I think I would really like to say that too, because like what's hard right now is not being able to be together as creatives, right? And so that's kind of the whole reason I started this stream was so that creatives can chat and just try
Yeah,
and
man.
feel inspired together. So yeah, I really echo that. If everybody just jump in the live chat and just ask any questions you would like, and I'm sure Key will be able to give you pearls of wisdom. Um, thanks, Live Dream, right? That's great. Cool. So, okay, so we're going to start with target 63 down. Why don't you just give us like a, I don't know, a brief little intro to tell us sort of what we're about to experience?
Okay, this is an action thriller set in a post-apocalyptic world.
Lovely.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think you're going to see my silly face in this one as well, aren't we? Because this is a
Yes.
project we did together. And after you guys have watched it, we'll chat a little bit about how we put it together, and Key will tell us a little bit more. So, I hope you guys enjoy. This is Target 63 Down. Here we go. Hope you have fun. All right. So that was Target 63 down. Well done, Key. So fun to see your work as always. Um, we've got a few questions coming in already, which is super awesome. Why don't you kind of just tell everybody kind of like, just the basics of how we shot that and, just give a little bit of background on the process so that we can start fielding the questions as well.
Okay. The idea for this came in a pub about 5 or 6 years ago. Me and Kev were sitting having a beer, and we thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a really short film that was just a fight scene, two people fighting, and you never really know why they're fighting. And it's sort of went on the back burner for a bit. Kev moved to LA and ruined everything. And then you came back for about a month or so, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
And we decided to literally get together for a day and make this film. So we chatted beforehand about having like a little bit of a story to it. So we sort of developed the story together. And the story was basically that two people were having a fight in this room, and we decided we wanted it to be like have an apocalyptic feel, but we also didn't really want to give an explanation as to why they were fighting, but to give hints about it. And so we came up with this whole eye being taken out and like this person is hunting the other person sort of thing, but not like going massively too into it. But we never wrote a script for it. We literally had an idea for the story, and then I got a load of crew together, found the location. We arranged a date when you were free, and it was literally the only day that you were free when you came back for that month.
Well, we sort of said, didn't we? We said like, shall we go to the pub or shall we shoot a film?
That's right. That's
and
right.
we did both, I think.
Yeah, what a great way to hang out together is to just make a short film together. So we did, and we choreographed it in that morning when we got to the location together. We shot it in that day. I couldn't storyboard because I didn't know anything. I couldn't do a shot list because I didn't know anything. So we literally made everything up on the day.
And as you say, it was nuts, wasn't it? Because it was almost like, because you and I love action films, so every time we go to the pub, we usually babble about action films for a bit. And and I remember us being in the pub being like, why haven't we shot an action film together? Like that has to be done. And as you said, I moved away, and then it was like, well, we've still got to make it happen. So yeah, it was that comedy, like, shall we get a pint or shall we shoot a film? And it's like, So yeah, and it was nuts, wasn't it? We got together that morning, and as you said, McGillen and I got together. How long did we have to choreograph the fight? Can you remember?
I think we'd set like 2 hours to choreograph the fight while crew was setting up everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
And so the crew was setting up around us, and the three of us, me, you, and Andy, who's the other actor in it. And we choreographed the movement and the fight scene while the crew was setting up, basically in a couple of hours.
Yeah, and it was weird because whenever I've choreographed in the past, you've always had a good number of weeks of rehearsal to get that fight into your body. I mean, and I love doing stunt and fight work so much, and I love choreography, but yeah, usually you get that time. But I think what was good about me and Andy is Andy and I have done loads of fighting together, so we can read each other. And I think like even if we forgot that choreography a little bit, when I see him twitch, I know he's coming for me. So I think we were lucky with our team, weren't we, to be able to work that.
I mean, luck's part of it, but it's also like we knew that because you guys had worked together a lot, and the three of us have worked together a lot, that there's a shorthand there and there's a trust there, and that was a massive part of it. So we were lucky that we were all free on the day, but it's also to do with the planning and choosing a good team,
Yeah, absolutely. And so why don't we just dive in to some of these questions straight away, because I think they'll lead us quite nicely. So first question we've got from Live Dream Right is, who did you get to do it? Stunt people. So the answer to that is it was just us, right? We didn't have any stunties in. It was just me and McGillen. McGillen and I we've done a lot of fighting together, as we've just said, and we've done a lot of stunt together as well. So
And we've all been on tour together as
Right.
actors as well. So, like, I've rolled with McGillen a lot when we were touring, and I know you guys have done the same. So, again, like, you know how each other moves, you know what each other's capable of, and that sort of thing. And like, I've known McGillen for 13 years now, and you've known him for 10 years as well. So,
Uh-huh.
again, like, there's a history there. And yeah, but I mean, we didn't have any stunt people, we had
No.
actors that are really good at stunts.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the trust thing is huge, right? Because I know with McGee, Andy seems to have a lot of names to clarify with everybody watching. Andy, McGee, McGillen, G. I don't know how he's accumulated so many. But I know that if I missed a block, he could stop a kick right here, and he wouldn't kick me in the face because
Yeah.
he's such a good martial artist. So
Although, Kev, you did send me a photo of your arms the next day, and they
oh,
covered in
I should have
bruises.
dropped that into this stream, shouldn't I? Yeah. Yeah, I did, didn't I? I had bruises, like I think because we were excited, and also we talked a lot about often when I see choreography, when you can really see when people pull.
Yeah,
And McGinnon and I decided that we again down to that trust. We trusted each other to throw some full weighted blows so that you could see those blocks landing.
yeah,
And we didn't do it all like that, but when you were close key on the shot, you want to see that hit land, and
yeah.
you want to see that it could have done damage. Otherwise, it's choreography. And as long as you trust your stunties, then I think you can do that.
And yeah, for me, that was a big part of it. It was like, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that you don't want to do, and that
Right.
decision was completely yours. So
Yeah.
again, it's about trust and finding the right team.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, and yeah, it was a lovely team, wasn't it? It was
It
such
was a
a
really good team. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so we did the stunts and choreography on that. Little clappy hands from Gav. So lovely to have you, Gav. Chrissy Tenchito. How did you control the lighting in there? It looked great. It did,
Oh,
Key.
thanks.
You did such good lighting on this. Tell me about it.
I didn't do anything with the lighting.
All right,
So
tell us.
the DOP, Jono, is a very, very talented young man. Again, I've worked with Jono for a few years, and there's a trust and a shorthand there. But basically, in that location, it is pitch black. You can't
Mm-hmm.
see anything when you walk in. So it at the time it was an old abandoned restaurant and bar from the 1950s that hadn't been used since the 1950s. So there was no electric in there. There was like one plug socket that worked. Um, and I knew the owner of it, so I got the location for free. So he was really nice, and he rigged up some of the electrics so that at least some more plug sockets would work.
Yeah.
But when you walk in there, it's pitch black.
Yeah.
So basically, that meant that Jono was able to control the lighting 100%, because without the lighting, you'd literally be able to see nothing.
Yeah.
And we were using cinema cameras, so we really had to like feed the cameras with light. So it needed a lot of light. And in those couple of hours when we were choreographing, he did a whole lighting design for the thing, which is just incredible. And like getting those streams of lights coming through windows. There are no windows. We were like 3 floors underground.
Yeah.
He did an incredible job. Again, because we wanted it to have like a really apocalyptic feel. So like everything is half lit. You're moving
Yeah.
in and out of shadows. And he just did a fantastic job.
It was such a good job, and it was such a good job that when we were Key and I were talking about doing this stream together, and we were just sort of chatting about what we might talk about and stuff. Um, and I said to him, how did we get that window lighting to work so well with what we wanted? And yeah, when Key said there were no windows, I was like, wait a minute, and it fooled me. So yeah, that was just such good lighting design, wasn't it, Key? It was
He's a very clever boy, yeah.
yeah. And there was obviously a lot of smoke work being done because that is
Yeah,
always great, right?
we were constantly filling it with smoke from the smoke machine, then letting the smoke dissipate so that you
Yeah.
get that volumetric light coming in, but you're not filling the scene with smoke, sort of thing. So yeah, we spent a lot of time like on the look of it, and
Yeah.
I think it was totally worth it. I mean, I ruined it in the grade. It's one of the things that I look back on with this and just like I made some really bad decisions with the grading.
Oh, I
But
still love it.
thanks.
Um, but I think it was a real testament to like location scouting, right? Like, I
Mm.
mean, you know, when I remember walking into that place in the morning, and it was just beautiful. You could have shot in any of those rooms, and there was so much character and so much like history already in those rooms
Mm.
that you almost don't need to do any art direction on it, right? You're just like, this is ready to go.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I'd shot a couple of things in there before in different rooms in that location, and I'd
mm,
always had an art director for those. But because I knew the location so well, and because we wanted it to be post-apocalyptic, I knew that we didn't need an art director for this one. So
yeah,
that's where I was able to save some money, in terms of like having a really stripped down crew for this one. Because I knew if we just put newspapers on the floor, it's
yeah.
going to look like an abandoned restaurant because it is.
And just to clarify, Key and I are definitely not dissing art directors. We love them very
No,
dearly. Yeah,
100%.
like they make projects happen. So yeah,
Very
just
much so, yeah.
we were just in a situation where we knew we had to cut corners anywhere we could, right, to make the project happen. So
I mean, we had zero money for it. Like,
right,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, amazing location, really kind of added to the character of it. Um, Live Dream Right. Did you storyboard it? So you talked a little bit about that, Key, but why don't you talk more about like what's the craziness of not storyboard? Because obviously you didn't storyboard, right? So
No, couldn't
mm,
storyboard, couldn't shot list for this, couldn't do anything. So Jono and I went in knowing what we wanted it to look like, and we had our reference photos of angles
mm,
and lighting and everything like that. But we couldn't really storyboard it because we didn't have a story,
right,
and we didn't have time. We didn't have like, because I think we only decided like the week before, oh, let's shoot this thing.
right.
So it, like in that time, it was more important for me to get a crew of trusted people than it was to be storyboarding. But normally with storyboarding and shot listing, what I do is I do all of that stuff. So I go in with a plan, knowing
Mm,
that my plan is likely to change, because when you're doing
mm,
low budget stuff, you have to be flexible and you have to be able to adapt, etc. So I knew that I was capable of that, and because I trusted everyone, I was like, I know that we can just make this up on the day and
mm.
it will be totally fine. As long as we know roughly what it is we want to achieve, I didn't feel like all of that stuff needed doing for this one.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I guess like because we didn't know what the choreography was going to be, there's just almost no
Exactly.
you can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And do you ever do that? Are there any other projects that you don't storyboard on, or would you always storyboard a project?
It depends on the project. For one, so for example, for my film that's coming up, well, it was supposed to happen just before, just after lockdown started, but I've storyboarded that. We've got a very clear shot list of what we want to do for it. And normally, yeah, I will always storyboard
Cool.
and shot list, but also, and this is just the way that I work, I will go in there and always look for more creative
Mm.
solutions and new ways of doing things, and be open to crews suggestions and stuff like that, because I feel like if you go in with a rigid plan, you're restricting yourself, whereas if you're open to new ideas, you're likely to come out with something that's better at the end of it, you know.
This is why everyone should work with Kee Ramsorrun.
Oh, stop.
Um, um, cool, amazing, and maybe I'm kind of thinking, just in case there's anybody watching that like is literally like brand new to filmmaking. Just can you just like give us a super like basic definition of storyboarding? Like what is it? Why do you do it?
Um, I found that everyone does it differently, and
Hmm.
like when I'm doing client work, clients will want a specific type of storyboard that they will understand. So I'll
Mm,
talk about it from how I will do it.
sure.
So let's say I've got a 1 minute scene. I will have, let's say, 6 images that I feel tell the story. So if I can tell the story in those 6 images, it'll be the most important moments of that scene. And so, for example, if I want to have certain framing to enhance the narrative, then I will make sure that that's in the storyboard. And there's a couple of
Cool.
reasons I do that. A, to remind me of what I want to do, but B, to communicate to the rest of the crew what it is, what the
Mm,
story is that I'm trying to tell. Right. So my storyboard will be a visual summary of the story in that scene, and however many boards I think that takes is however many I will use, and it will always have the camera movement, it will have the angle, it will have the lens that we'll be using, and all of that. So it'll have all the information in it that I think we will need to use on the day, and it's basically just a time saver. So
Yeah.
rather than turning up and thinking, oh, what lens are we going to use? Do we need an 85 for this or whatever?
Yeah.
You've already planned with your DOP and your art director exactly what that is going to be.
And I guess that's super useful, right? Because if you don't do that before, you could turn up on the day and your DOP could have a very like solid idea of how he wants to shoot it. You could have a totally different idea, and then you've got to have that discussion on set, which is just a bit of a nightmare, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, cool. And then do you draw them? Do you use a piece of software to make it? Like,
I will hand draw a lot.
yeah,
So if I'm doing client work, I have a storyboard artist that I use, who is
sure.
a storyboard artist. That's his job. But for my short films, yeah, I will just hand draw, and I
Yeah.
will. I mean, I'm not the best drawer in the world. I'm good enough to like convey what I'm trying to say with a shot. So yeah, I just hand draw it.
And I've seen
And then
people.
I take it into Photoshop, and I'll type in all the information there. So I have like a template that I fill in. Yeah.
And I've seen people literally do storyboards with stick figures, just
100%.
anything to like, just give you an idea, right?
Yeah, like if you're doing a wide shot, stickman in it, yeah, totally
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Totally
cool.
fine. Buildings are just squares, etc. Yeah.
Nice. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the cameras you used for this, why you used them, and because I really love the look of this. I think that's why I feel most proud of this. I mean, obviously, I love throwing McGillen around a room and having a fight, but but I think I was so excited by the way the film looked. So how did you achieve that look, I guess?
Good question, man. Most of that I think we've already talked about. I think the cinematography of particularly the lighting adds a lot to that. But we used two Blackmagic Ursa Mini 4.6K cameras. So about 4 or 5 years ago, oh my word, 6 years ago, I switched to Blackmagic cameras because I think the color science is just so beautiful. It's like using an Arri, which is what is used in the majority of feature films these days, but it's like the budget version of it. So you get these really beautiful, rich colors. The footage is really malleable. So in post, you can push and pull it, and you don't really get degradation. And then I had a set of prime lenses. I can't remember which ones we used on this, Kev, but it's prime lenses. And so I had two operators. Jono, who was the DOP, was operating one, and then we had another camera person operating another one.
And is there any reason that you chose two cameras rather than a single camera setup? Like, what advantages does it give you?
That was purely a time decision because I knew that if we were doing one camera setups, it would literally take twice as long to shoot it. And I knew we only had a day. So I knew that if we got two in and chose our angles well, you could not be in each other's shot and just do really complementary reverse shots of each other. So I hired in, I owned one of those cameras at the time, hired in another one that was exactly the same. And so when we were shooting a close-up on one camera, we'd be shooting a wider shot on the other one, and then we would flip it for the next take.
Nice.
So that we knew we were getting coverage of both characters.
Yeah, that gives you some nice movement, right? If you're doing that, it's
yeah. And I knew, because I knew that I'd have more time to edit than I did to shoot, that was fine. Because like having loads of rushes for this one was fine because I had all the time in the world to edit it. Yeah.
Cool. That's fun. And so maybe I guess the next question, because I'm just like, I could talk to you all day about things, but I'm very aware that we've only got an hour for this stream, so we just need to keep moving. But maybe then I guess we do our first sort of tip into filmmaking. People always say to me, like, if I want to get into filmmaking, what kit do I need to shoot a film? What would be your response to that? Simple question.
My response would be, I think that's probably not the right question.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
I think filmmaking for me is like, if you're thinking about kit, I think you might be thinking about the wrong thing.
Nice.
I think you should always be thinking about storytelling, Storytelling is the most important part of filmmaking. The kit is all a bonus. Like, the kit comes after. You need to make sure that the story you are telling is clear and worth telling. I think, like, if you want me to answer the question, I can answer the question. The
I
question,
prefer your answer, but yeah.
is a phone.
Yeah.
You need a phone. Like, the first film I ever shot, which is hands down the most seen film that I've ever made. It's the most popular film I've ever made. I made it in 2004, and we shot it on a camcorder.
Yeah.
And it's easily probably the best film I've ever made. And now
Your
I've
answer
added all
is
this kit, and nothing
yeah.
has been since. So for me, it's about storytelling. It's not about the kit. Like, anything that you can use to capture the story that you want to tell, that's all
Yeah.
you need.
Your answer is being celebrated in the live chat as well. Live Dream Right says, yes, story must come first.
Always
So, yeah.
story first.
That's such a good answer, man, because I think that in this world, right, where we have so much technology in our pocket, you know, like we're in a situation now where people can shoot films much more easily than they ever could, you know, like, and you know, there's been features shot on iPhones, right? I mean, I think they added some extra lenses onto them and whatever, but you know, you can do it,
Yeah.
and they look
That's
good.
testament to the whole thing, dude. It's not about having an Arri or a Red camera, because if
Yeah,
you've got a rubbish story, no one's going to care that you've shot it on a Red.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you've got a brilliant story that's shot on an iPhone, people are going to enjoy that way more.
yeah. That's super cool, dude. Okay, great. Live Dream Right, I think people sometimes forget why they wanted to be filmmakers. They forget about story. I think that's really, really true, Live Dream Right.
It's so true. Story has been with us forever. Like, go
Yeah,
back to when we were living in caves. We were drawing pictures on the walls to tell each other stories. We've sat around campfires to tell each other
yes,
stories. Stories is the thing. It's not it. Film is just a medium to tell those stories. Same as photography is a medium. It's about the story. It's not
yeah.
about the medium as much it is about the story for me.
That's super cool. Okay, great. I really like that. Well, why don't we watch your next story, Kee Ramsorrun?
Okay.
Want to give us a little wiggle into this one?
This one is
Different?
it's different. It is a comedy about identity.
Okay, great. Cool. And why don't you introduce this one, Key? So give it its name and then we'll move into it.
It's called The Men with No Name.
All right, nicely done, Key. That one makes me laugh so much. Cool. And we've got a couple of giggles coming in from the live chat as well, so that's lovely. Cool. Let's just jump back. We've got a question that I missed about the last film, so let's just jump back on that. I've lost it now. It was Live Dream Right, I think, and it was just asking about how insurance and what did you do about it on the last film. Thank you for all your questions, guys. We love it so much. It's very lovely.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you.
the
Keep
questions.
going. Keep going. Questions. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Insurance. So basically, because I'm a full-time filmmaker and I run a freelance collective, which means I have a load of freelancers that work with me to do my corporate and commercial work. I have insurance because I need to make sure that all my kit is covered, all my freelancers are covered, I'm covered. There's like accidental, I can't remember what it's called, but like if accidents happen on set, then everyone's covered. So basically what I can do is, because that's for all of my corporate and commercial work, when I'm shooting a short film, I can just do add-ons to that. So I can make sure if I'm doing a personal project, I can just add that on to my already existing insurance. And I just let them know, okay, well, I've got 2 actors, I've got this many crew, this is the kit that I'm using, this is the location. And then I just pay a bit extra for the insurance on top of what I already pay on a monthly basis. So I always make sure that everything is covered.
Yeah. Live Dream Right, does it cover stunties too?
Yes, if you tell the insurance, because they specialize in the creative arts,
Hmm.
so they work with a lot of freelancers. So you're able to tell them, yes, there will be actors doing stunts on this, and it covers all of that.
That's great. So they can pretty much, that you can, they can make a kind of custom package for the project you're doing,
Yeah,
basically. That's really
exactly.
good.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it to the point where it's a lot of it is almost checkbox.
Yeah.
Like, will you be doing this on your film? And you can like tick a load of things, and then if you want to add anything in, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Awesome.
good.
Love it. Cool. So let us talk about The Men with No Name. This
Okay.
one always makes me chuckle. Can you sort of tell us about, how you came up with it and how you started the project rolling, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So my dad is a massive fan of the spaghetti western trilogy with Clint Eastwood, where he
Uh-huh.
plays the man with no name.
Hmm.
So I've always loved those films, and I basically wanted to do a parody
Yeah.
of them, but I wanted to make it both silly. So, like, why would there be cowboys dressed in Southeast London?
Yeah.
So I made it about identity, but also it was a lot of it was working with the locations that I had, and so I
Sure.
came up with this idea that he's dressed as a cowboy because that's his thing.
Yeah.
Like, people know him, that he's the guy that dresses up as a cowboy, and that meant that I could then make a film where I could parody Sergio Leone's work.
And I think the reason I think I enjoy it so much is that because short film as a genre is a tough thing, right? Like I think people often try and tell too much in short films, and it was one of the things that we wanted to avoid in Target 63 Down. That's why we didn't want to almost write a script or a narrative, because it was people try and jam too much into it, and it's about
Yeah,
telling a sort of self-contained idea. And I think what I liked about this is that it started almost as many short films you see do, that obviously aren't in an olden day thing, but they're just working with the location they've got because they want to tell that one. But
yeah,
then you flip it on its head and you realize that these guys are not actually trying to be in the olden day Western times. They're like, yeah, it's like a parody of itself. So I just thought that was
yeah.
a clever choice, is that, yeah, you didn't try and force it to be something. You let it be what it was with what you had, which I think was
Yeah, and I
good.
think that's really important. Again, it's that flexibility things. Like, if I was trying to like shoehorn in that it was oldie worldy, like you're never going to be able to do that. So it's like,
Right.
how do I make it work in
Yeah.
that case? And I basically just had one joke that I like took 5 minutes to build up to. But there's little other jokes in there as well.
Well, as you guys may know, if you watched Kee's stream last Tuesday, we're both massive fans of Spaced, and I think there's a lot of Spaced heritage in this short, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's definitely there's a tone that I definitely recognise, which I think was lovely.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, I'm very open about who my influences are, and like, I think it's Eva's said. Oh no, Gav said there's a lot of Edgar Wright in there, and
Mm-mm.
yeah, I mean, like the transitions are pure Edgar Wright.
Yeah,
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 and also like, yeah, I just love Spaced, and I love that Cornetto trilogy. There's just, yeah.
yeah. And so, what would you say is different about the production of this versus Target 63 Down? What?
So I on this one, um I had someone who wanted to become a filmmaker recording the sound. I had
Hmm.
two other people who were looking to get into the film industry, to basically act as runners,
Hmm.
and they did so much for me on the day, holding up reflectors and stuff. But I shot it myself, I lit it myself,
Hmm.
so it was like really stripped back version. I just got this new camera and I wanted to shoot something on the new camera. I didn't
What
have
was
any
it?
money.
What was it shot?
So it's the same camera that I shot Target 63
Ah.
on, but I shot
Mhm.
this one first.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically, I contacted a couple of actor friends and said, "Do you want to make a short film?" And they were both like, "Yeah." And I knew they could both do comedy, and I love writing comedy, so I came up with this idea and wrote this thing. And but yeah, we shot it in half a day, and like beginning to end. So from having the idea to finishing the edit, it was 2 weeks in all. But it was
Wow.
much like stripped back, and I made a lot more mistakes on this than I did on Target 63. For
Uh-huh.
example, like, I shouldn't Leslie, I think he's brilliant, but he's not a sound recordist.
Mm,
And so in the first scene, when the first cowboy walks into the pub, I had to ADR all of that in post. So
yeah.
we had to re-record all of that dialogue in post. And then in the main scene where they're sitting at the table, we had to do so much work on that dialogue and the audio in post, because the levels were just so low, because Lee
Right.
didn't really know what he was doing.
But he was your
So
sound op for the day.
well, he wasn't. Lee was looking. So what I want, another thing that I wanted to do with this film was give people who were looking to get into film an opportunity to be on set and
That's
work around
cool.
stuff like that. So none of the crew had worked on a film set before.
Wow.
Um, but I should have been a bit more selective, and like the sound, I should have got a proper sound op in for that. So it's my fault. It's not Lee's fault.
No, no, no. Well, and sound is a crazy game, isn't it? I mean, I remember when we shot another film together, and we had similar issues, right? We just on Because of Love, we had that the sound was super low in level as well, and we also had like pops
Yeah,
when
that's
people were
right.
moving their grip on the boom, and it was
Yeah,
because we were in a similar position. We just couldn't afford to get a sound op in, and we were like, cool,
yeah.
we'll just hold the boom. And then you realize, oh my God, sound ops are like the kings and queens of making films happen.
100%, 100%. Fortunately, there were some brilliant sound engineers who saved it. I mean,
Mm,
I always can tell whenever I watch that one how much work has been done on it, and anyone that is a filmmaker can tell. But
well,
for me, it doesn't really matter because it's a technical problem. It still doesn't get in the way of the story.
and actually, I didn't know this before this moment, and I thought that the kind of like over ADR'd sound. Could you tell the people just what ADR is in terms of if
Yeah,
people
so
are
it's
new?
basically you'll when you look out for it on TV, you can see it. It's basically if there's a script change um, after shooting and you want your character to say something different, or there's like a glitch in the audio, and you basically just re-record people's lines in post. So after you've shot, you re-record them and then you put it into the edit, and then you add the reverb and stuff to make it sound like they're saying it in situ.
And I must say, as an actor, it's one of the funniest things to do in the
Yeah,
world. I've
it's
definitely
weird.
I've done films where, you know, because like when I was running in a scene or something, and you know, and they don't capture the sound because they don't want to like mic you up just to have you run down the street, and then you go into ADR to get the breath of you running, and
Yeah.
then very comical scenes of me being in a studio going and stuff like that. Some of
There
my
is an
fondest memories.
amazing video of Hugh Jackman recording the ADR for Wolverine on YouTube. If you can find that, guys, go and watch it, because his commitment to his
Oh,
character, and he's just what a legend that man is. But it's just brilliant watching him record ADR. It's
it's
fascinating.
also such a good thing for actors to see because I think actors often forget to work with their crew and their techs, and actors are very not everybody, but some actors are very obsessed with their own technique. And I think when we work as actors, we always have to commit to our techs and we have to give them 100%. And that's whether you're
And
doing
vice versa as well, Kev.
sure,
It's ensemble, and that like you can go out and make a documentary about your local town on your own, absolutely. But
uh,
anything where you're working with other people, you are all as important as each other. Is how I feel and how I approach it.
absolutely. And you know, and I see sometimes actors, you know, in when you're doing a rehearsal before a shot or something, and yeah, you do have to reserve maybe some of your like reservoir inside so you can hit the shot at 100%, but you've got to move as quick. You've got to, you know, you've got to give the techs what they need so they can do their job. And I think Hugh Jackman's that video of Hugh Jackman doing his ADR is just so good because yeah,
Yeah,
he's giving it everything, right? You could film that and put it in the film because he's so committed. It's just
yeah.
great. So yes, so the ADR at the top of this film, you do hear it, but I wondered if it was a choice. I thought it was an artistic choice to have this like,
Yes. Yes, it was artist. Well, so once I realized that I needed to do it, I then went back and looked at the spaghetti western films, and a
uh,
lot of theirs is ADR, and very obviously ADR. And so then we made the stylistic choice that
yeah.
actually we're going to make it obviously ADR.
And I thought that worked, with the sort of hero cowboy having that like whispered quiet voice, but boosted in the sound level,
yeah.
gives him that like power status, and I just thought that was quite funny. So it does show like how important sound design is, right, when you're telling story.
And also being flexible and always thinking creatively throughout the
Mm,
whole process. Because, you could have got to that point and thought, "Oh man, I've got no decent audio now. I can't put this film out."
mm,
But you need to keep thinking creatively about how you can solve problems.
yeah,
Because actually, now I feel like that those ADR choices actually add to the
yeah,
film, and I wouldn't have come up with that unless I'd made a mistake. And that's
yeah,
why it's important to make mistakes and make bold choices where you can fall down, learn from it, and you like help yourself come up with creative solutions to
that's
stuff, and you end up
beautiful.
with something that's better and can still work.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just going to scan through the live chat. Lots of lovely. It was funny. It was so funny from Andreas and I. Thanks, Andrea. Hi, Andrea. Um, and yeah, that was hilarious from Chrissy Tenchi. Oh, so obviously, people enjoying this one. As always, people, if you've got any questions for Key, throw them in the live chat. I'm sure he will answer them for you. While we're maybe waiting for some questions to populate, so you mentioned like how important mistakes are. Are there any others from this film that you learnt from, when you were shooting it or working on it?
Um, there were some things on set that I knew that I was going to do. So, for example, it wasn't necessarily a mistake,
Mm.
because of budget restrictions and whatever. But basically, in the outdoor, so we shot in the pub for about 2 hours, and then we moved into the park next door. Which so the pub is literally next door to this park, and they're all
Mm.
within a minute's walk from my old house. So excellent location scouting on my
Yeah.
part. And again, it was all free. So I'd written to the council, and they'd said, "Yeah, of course you can film," and like
Oh,
the
that's
pub
nice.
gave me the location for free and whatever. But anyway, I also knew that because I was lighting everything myself, when we got to the outdoor bit, I was like, "Do you know what? It's way more important that my composition is telling the story than it is to have lights." So I basically
Mm.
had a series of reflectors to bounce light around the actors, and
Sure.
the runners were holding those reflectors. Um, but with reflectors, they reflect, so you can see them in people's eyes and stuff. So there was a lot in that film. In post, I had to rotoscope the reflectors out of people's eyes. I
No.
also knew, because it was an overcast day, I also knew that I was going to replace the sky in post as well. So all of the sky that you see is completely digital, because it
Right.
was just a grey sky. I mean, you look closely, you can totally see it, but I don't think
Fooled
most
me.
people notice on
Yeah.
first watching.
No.
So that they weren't necessarily mistakes, but they were things that I knew I would have to work on in post
Could
due to
you,
the budget.
as we're on explaining basic terms at all times in this stream, could you give the team rotoscoping? Let them know what rotoscoping is.
Rotoscoping is digitally removing something from a shot frame by frame. So you look at
Oh,
one frame, you remove what you need to remove, you mask it out, or you digitally erase it or clone stamp it, which is basically choosing another part of the image to put on top of it. And then you go to the next frame and you do exactly the same thing. So, for example, if there was a 1 second shot of someone's eyes with a reflector in it, I had to rotoscope, remove the reflector from their eyes 25 times for that 1 second.
yeah.
Yeah.
And not only can you erase, you can enhance as well, right? So like
Yeah.
the lightsabers in the original Star Wars movies, they were painted
Painted
in
in.
by hand, frame by frame, weren't they?
Yeah.
Um, which
And
is
now there's literally a button that you can click to turn anything into a lightsaber, which is just crazy.
which was the first thing I did when I got my
I
video editing
rewatched it
lap.
recently, Kev. Your edit of your lightsaber, it's brilliant.
It's like as soon as I bought a video editing laptop, I went, "Well, I'm going to make a lightsaber, obviously." So,
Got to be
um,
done.
always. Um, Cool. That's amazing. And you know, anything else that I don't know that you were excited about this film that you feel worked really well, or like I don't know, just
One
what?
thing that I will say that I did differently the reason I wanted to show a comedy is because my approach with making a comedy is slightly different to how it is with making a drama.
Yeah.
Because with a drama, I won't always rehearse it, because
Mm,
sometimes, depending on which actors I'm working with, I want to see what they come up with in the moment, and I
yeah.
don't want them to rehearse with each other because I want to see how they bounce off each other.
Right.
It will depend on how much time we've got on set and whether
Sure.
I feel we can like work quickly enough or well enough, or if we've got enough time to be able to play with it. But a lot of the time, I don't rehearse dramas. But
Mm-hmm.
with comedy, I always rehearse comedy because I think you need to see how that's coming off the page. With a drama, when I'm on set, I can rewrite really quickly. But with comedy, I feel I need to know beforehand. I can still rewrite on set and change
Sure.
things, but with comedy, I think it's more important to work with your actors beforehand to know. So we had an hour's rehearsal in
Mm.
at the BFI one day before we did it. But I think, yeah, rehearsing in comedy and for the actors to be able to feel their rhythm, because it's the rhythm with comedy is so important, and finding
Yeah.
those beats. It's like music,
It
and
is.
a band couldn't just get together. Well, maybe they could, but you'd prefer a bit of rehearsal, right, to
Yeah.
make sure you're nailing it. If you've never worked together, but and so for with comedy, it's for me, it's similar. You need that time to be able to find that rhythm and find those nuances and yeah, all those things. And actors bring funny, so like there's stuff in there that I hadn't written. You know?
I think that's really well said, and from the actor's perspective as well, I think I would really agree with that. Like when you're doing drama, I think you need to know where you're going and stuff, just like technically with your blocking and stuff
Mm.
like that. But like I know, and especially if it's like a highly charged scene, I know that I would prefer to be, you know, just step back from set a little bit and kind of able to run prep in my mind and then step in and shoot on a piece of highly charged drama.
Yeah.
And that the more you do it, and obviously I'm sensitive to that the techs always need their time and the crew always need their time to get it right, and so obviously you do as many takes as need to be done. But with highly charged drama, as much as you can nail it in those minimal shots, it really is important.
Yeah.
And I often feel with comedy there's like golden moments. I think your first take is always really exciting with comedy because there's an energy there that you won't get back again. But I always feel with comedy, it's like the third or fourth take because you know you've nailed it in the previous ones, and then you're like, all right, let's mess about a bit. And if you
Yeah.
can start making the crew laugh, then you know you're onto something. And I often think that only comes from a little bit of rehearsal, a little bit of experimentation, and often drifting away from script to find your own energy, and then coming back to script. If you want to make sure you're word for word, then you can. But I think doing a couple of takes off script with comedy is really helpful. I don't know how you
Yeah,
feel about
I
that as a
totally
director,
agree with
but
that. I think it depends on your director, because some directors will be, these are the words that have been written and these are the words
right,
that need to be said.
sure.
So yeah, and there needs to be a certain fluidity there, because you can do that with some directors and not with others. But Kev, you said something that I was like, yes, you've nailed that, and I wanted to pick up on it, and I can't remember what it was now. That's right. It will come back to me. It will come back to me later. What did you say? Remind me what you said.
Don't
Like
know, like
bullet
third or
points.
fourth take is good with comedy, little drift away from script, then come back.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It'll come back to me. But you said something that I was like, yes, I really want to pick up on that because that's so true. But yeah, basically everything you said. Yeah, brilliant.
Great. um, cool. Okay, so then maybe what's our like golden tip for this second film? People getting started out. We talked about first tip was don't think about the kit, think about the story. What's a second tip?
Um, I think the most important thing you can do as a filmmaker when you've got a project in mind is to trust yourself. Don't be
Hmm.
afraid to make mistakes. Be bold, be creative, Try not to second guess yourself. Um, and at the same time, make stuff that makes you happy.
Hmm.
Like, if you have any doubt in your mind that you're not enjoying the process, step away from it. It's not important enough to, put your mental or emotional health in jeopardy with these things. The reason to do these things, to tell stories, is because it brings joy. It makes it, or it makes people think, or whatever it is. But if it's making you unhappy, step away from it. That's not the project to be working on.
That's super
Um,
cool.
and I think there's a certain amount to be thinking about making the audience happy and
Yeah.
doing something that the audience is going to enjoy. But I think more than anything, do something that you're going to enjoy and that you're going to be proud of and that you're going to be happy with, because your well-being is as important as the audience's well-being. So, don't just do stuff because you think your audience is going to like it if it's going to make you miserable.
I think that's really awesome, dude. Like, I think that there's a lot of talk often, isn't there, that artists should use their pain to create their art and all that kind of stuff. And um, you know, from the acting world, you speak to a lot of actors that like, no, I think about this traumatic thing to get me to where I am. And
Mm,
actually, like, so there is so much acting technique out there where you don't need to do that. You don't need to relive your own traumas in order to reach a certain place as an actor. There's so many techniques out there where you can just fully invest in your imagined reality and create those emotions from that, not from your past trauma. And it's really interesting to hear you say that as a director and as a content creator, that sure, we might have to tell challenging stories, right? We might have
yeah,
to
of
tell
course.
stories which contain trauma or
And
negativity.
they can come from pain,
Right.
100%. They can come from painful experiences or whatever it is, but you don't need to relive that all the time. If
Yeah,
it helps you work through it, absolutely. If that's part of helping you work through trauma and pain, then absolutely do it, because it's going to get you to a better place. But if it's
sure.
just making you miserable,
Yeah.
you don't
Why?
need
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah, you don't need to do
I like this, Key, because these are answers I didn't see coming.
that.
I thought the first answer was going to be buy this camera, and it's like, no, look at the story. And I thought the next tip was going to be something else, but blowing my mind, Key. Love it. Really good question from Andrea Sanai. Thank you,
Ooh, okay.
Andrea. Hi. Sorry if this has been addressed. It hasn't. Thank you for putting questions in the live chat. We love you guys for doing that. Yes. Um, but what's the most challenging part of directing? Working with actors, finding sets, working within a budget? Good question. Go on, Key.
Man, that is such a good question. Obviously, I can only answer from my experience. So every director will find something different to answer with that. Was an actor before I was a director, and
Hmm.
so working with actors is a joy for me. I love it. I love playing with actors. Um, so, d- what's okay? What is the hardest thing about being a filmmaker? Um, I think it's finding crew that you can trust,
Hmm.
and uh, clearly telling them your vision. I think for
Yeah,
me, that's the hardest thing. Like, sometimes, like, because I've been doing it for so long now, I have a group of people that I know if I need to get my best people on it, I have those best people now. But
sure.
starting out, it was like, man, I've got all these ideas and I see this so clearly in my head. But how do I communicate it to other people? And how
Yeah.
do I find the other people that are going to go with me on this journey?
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing for me as a director,
So
is
how do you do that? How do you find them?
um make mistakes.
Yeah.
Literally, I just make mistakes. So there's places like mandy.com where you
Mm.
can put a shout out for, if you're looking for a sound person or if you're looking for a DOP. And so what I will always do is I'll say, okay, I'm making this film and I want a completely new crew for it, for example, let's say, right? I would then go, okay, so I know that I want a DOP, I want a sound person, I want an art director, etc., etc., etc. So I would put an advert on somewhere like mandy.com, which is a place where filmmakers go to find jobs. I would then, through all of the applicants that come in, for me, a lot of it is based on instinct and how they write their letter, how they
Mhm.
communicate with me. So little of it is to do with their work,
Mm.
because I will watch their show reel, and if I think they create beautiful work, great. But more than anything, it's to do with how they communicate with me and whether I'm going to be able to work with them on set. So I will then contact a few people that I really like, and I will meet them, because again, that's really important that you're going to get on in person.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, basically, I'm very open to making mistakes and learning from them. Like whether that's me not communicating well, I will always have a really honest debrief with the team after the film to say, okay, what did I get wrong? What could we do better next time? Etc. etc. So it's being really open to learning and making mistakes. And then eventually, once you have made all the mistakes that you could possibly make, which I have and will continue to do, you sort of get a bit better and you start to meet the right people and all of that sort of thing. Yeah,
And mistakes are so much part of the creative process, right? If you're scared of those mistakes, then it can break you down, because creating art is a personal experience. You know, you're really, you're putting yourself out there, and it's horrible to make those mistakes, but you have to make them to
absolutely.
grow and continue as an artist. So yeah, I think that's really important, man.
Yeah, I think you're
Um,
absolutely right, Kev. And I think if you're not making mistakes with your creative art, brilliant, well done. But I would
mm,
challenge you to say maybe you're not being bold enough,
yeah.
and maybe you're not being honest with yourself to say, can I do better?
And
Because that's the times that I've failed, is when I've challenged myself to say, can I do better? Can I take a risk here? And am I brave enough to do that?
and I think our audience feels that, right? It's like when you watch,
They need it as well, Kev. They need
yeah,
it.
and
They need to be challenged.
it's like when you watch like a sportsman or something, and what's exciting about seeing sports people when they're pros is their like excellent skill, the way
Mhm.
they're able to like do these incredible things with their bodies, whether that's football or tennis or like any, I don't know, any sport. But the moment that you become emotionally invested when you're watching is when they're pushed beyond their technique.
Yeah,
They're so tired, or the other person is so good that their technique is challenged, and they're going beyond it to the
yeah.
level that is untouched. And not to get too, I don't want to be too like arty crazy here, but like when artists do that too, when you see their technique being like stretched by
Mm,
the emotion or the passion that they have for the project, that's when I stand up as an audience member,
yeah, agreed,
um
mate. 100%. That's a really good analogy, metaphor, simile, all in
mm,
one.
right. um Gav Cooper, have you always directed your own stories, or are you open to collaborating with screenwriters? Wink wink. Because if you
Yeah,
guys don't know, Gav is a wonderful writer. He was on a stream a couple of streams ago about how to get started in writing. So maybe that would be a fun collaboration. Um, but
it's a really good question.
I think we should jump into the next film, and we've got a
Okay,
question from Andrea as well, saying, "What made you want to be a director?" So why don't you ponder those questions as we watch the next film, and then
Brill.
after that we can come back and answer those. So those questions will be answered. But for now, we have another film by Kee Ramsorrun. Why don't you introduce this one, you lovely man?
This is a documentary, so a bit
Hmm.
different to the other ones that we've watched, and it is called Things My Mother Said.
I really like that film, and it makes me a puddle every time I watch it. Um, that was very good, Key. Thank you for that.
Thanks to my
Um,
mom.
yeah, what an awesome lady, eh?
Yeah, she's amazing.
Um, why don't you just tell us a little bit about why you wanted to make that film? What's important about that film to you?
Um, so that came about because I was at my parents' house one day, and I saw the first photo ever taken of my dad.
Mm.
and he was 16 years old in the photo. So before that photo, there is no documentation of my dad's life at all, apart from his stories. Um, so I thought, okay, I need to make sure that his stories are captured somehow.
Mm.
So I made Things My Father Said, which is a short documentary about my dad. But the reason I wanted to do it was because I think people's stories are so important and part of us and part of part of history, part of the future. And so I thought I wanted to make sure that his story was documented somewhere. So I've got hours and hours of rushes where me and my dad just sat and chatted for hours. And so I made that into a 5 minute, 6 minute documentary, whatever it is. And then I wanted to do the same for my mom because my mom is so brilliant, and I wanted to do her story as a complementary film to my dad's story, um, because I think she's led such an amazing life and has such brilliant values, and she shares them with the people around her. But her message to me is so important that I wanted more people to hear that message. And so, yeah, that's why I did one for my mom.
And if you guys haven't seen the documentary Things My Father Said, you should go and watch it as soon as you finish this stream because it's so good. And yeah, Kee's care and gentle touch can be seen in that film as well. It's so good. So definitely check that out. Um, um, and so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about with this, just like almost like the technical filmmaking aspect of this, was that this is a really emotional short film. In about
Mm.
2 seconds, it always takes me to a very emotional place. And obviously, your mum is experiencing emotions in it as well. And when I've seen documentaries in the past, they felt quite voyeuristic or what's that word I can't say, Key?
I can't remember it.
Exploit
Exploitative.
exploitative.
Yeah.
um, you know, and they really seem to be like, look at this person crying, and it feels wrong. And I think
Mm.
one of the things I love about your work on this is that it doesn't feel like that. It feels like we're just with her. Um, so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you think you achieve that. Like, why does that feel different in this film?
It's a really good question. The story of this for me started in 2004. I watched Fahrenheit 9/11 by
Mm.
Michael Moore, and there's a
Hmm.
scene in that where he's talking to um, a mother whose son has died, and she breaks down, like uncontrollably breaks down, and he leaves the camera rolling, and it's an incredible piece of film, right? And I came out of it, and I was very moved and inspired by the whole film. But that scene stayed with me because I thought, I don't know. At the time, I was like, I don't know if I could do that as a
Yeah.
filmmaker. If someone was breaking down in front of me, I don't know that I could keep the camera rolling and let that happen without making sure they needed whatever they needed in that moment. And I talked to my brother about it, who isn't a filmmaker anymore, but was a filmmaker and has done some fantastic work. And he said, but if you're telling that story, it's part of your job to tell that story. And if that's
Okay.
part of the story, then you need to let it rolling. But the most important thing is the person's well-being. As soon
Mm.
as you think the person's well-being is in jeopardy, you have to focus on the person's well-being. So it depends on the subject in the film. So because
Mm.
I know my mom, I knew that she was okay
Yeah.
at that point. And, there were other points where we did stop and, um, mom got a glass of water or took some
Mm.
time to, and, we chatted about other things that aren't on camera. Um, but in those moments that you see in the film, I knew that mom was okay, you know, so it felt like we were just having, I mean, my mom might see it differently, but that's what I was feeling at the time, is that, okay, I know that she's okay in this moment. And I was constantly asking her, do you need
Yeah.
to stop? Do you need some time? What do you need? So you're just working with the person that you're working with. And I think when you're directing documentary, that's really important role as a director, is to work with the people. And that's, you have to be adaptable to every single person. You can't treat everyone the same because everyone's needs are different. You have to
Mm.
be what that person needs right then in that moment. It's not about you, it's about them. And yes, of course, you're trying to get a story, but for me, I will never put someone's well-being in jeopardy to get that story.
What a lovely, lovely man you are.
Oh,
So I think that's really cool, right? Because then that tells us why it doesn't feel like that, because it's not. Because if it ever became that, you'd stop the camera, right? That sort of
yeah.
answers the question.
And I also, like, if there were bits that my mom wasn't comfortable being in there because she got upset before I cut or something,
Yeah.
it's that's totally my mom's decision as to whether that stuff goes in and whether it's allowed to go on the internet as
And I guess
well.
that's really interesting because that may be it could be tough if you're dealing with different subject matter, right? If you're dealing with something where you are maybe exposing someone, obviously this is very different to the film you made here, but like if you were doing some kind of like expose or something on somebody that somebody's bad behavior, they obviously may not want to be in that film and may not want to show the things that you're showing in that film. So that
Yeah.
line of figuring out when to keep the camera rolling and when to put something out there, that's such a tough line to walk, right?
It is, but I think as a director, you need to be a human being that can connect with other human beings and be empathetic with them. I did a documentary about um, a woman who was the first female boxing promoter in the UK,
Hmm.
right? And she won't mind me talking about this because it's in the final film.
Okay, cool.
But she talked about some of her, and like this, it wasn't, and there was no plan for me to talk about any of this. It just came up as we were talking on camera.
Yeah.
She talked about some of her history of domestic abuse and in her relationships,
Yeah.
right? And again, similarly to my mom, all of that is her decision as to whether whether she wants to talk about it, and B, whether she wants it to go in the film or
Hmm.
not. If she doesn't, 100% it's not going in. And
Right.
I will always lead with anything that you're not comfortable talking about, please tell me. We will not talk about it.
Cool.
So it's always to do with whatever the person that you're working with needs in that moment.
Yeah. Um, really
I will
interesting.
also say, Kev, about this one, this is not the film that I set out to make at all.
Really?
No. Um, Originally, I'd had in my head it would be really interesting to do the story of a white woman who married a brown man, and their story of how they've dealt with that, what their approach to race and harmony is, and all of that,
Right.
and what her opinion of all of that is. So I have all of these rushes where we're talking about all of that.
Yeah.
But when I put it all into the edit, I was just like, this is so important for people to hear, because like I got so much from my mom that day, and like this story of how we as a generation influence the next generation, and it's our responsibility to raise them as good
Mm.
people who look out for each other. Like I've got all of that from my mom, and she got it from her parents, and I was just
Yeah.
like, that's so important to it's more important than the stuff that I had originally had to say in the film.
Yeah. And I think that there's still that voice is still in there, right? Because
Yeah.
it's inherently part of the story, I guess, of your family and your parents. And so that when she's saying all the like lovely, amazing things that she's saying in that short film, that is obviously part of the way that she views society and and how horrendously other people treat each other with
Mhm.
bigotry and stuff like that. She's obviously saying that that's not okay in that film. And but yeah, that's really interesting that your mind kind of went to different places as you were editing, and that you yeah reached a
Yeah,
different
and
endpoint.
and as I was shooting it as well. So
Mm,
when, like, because I hadn't planned to talk about a lot of that stuff, but again, it was that like, okay, this is my plan, but I'm also going to be adaptable so that I know my plan might change,
yeah.
which I think is a really important part of filmmaking.
I think that's sort of something you've said almost from the beginning of the stream, right? Is this like adaptability and this ability to be flexible, and I think that's really exciting. I think that's a really
It,
cool
it
thing.
is because
Yeah.
so, like, more often than not, you end up with better work
Hmm.
because of it.
Hmm. So then, why don't we jump back to Andrea's question of what made you want to be a director? What?
So I was an actor for many years, and I was working on features as an actor, and so I was on set a lot on TV sets and film sets, and hanging out on TV and film sets as an actor, I always found like I was on my own a
Mm,
lot, but the crew were always together.
yeah.
So I would go and hang out with the crew. And the more I hung out with the crew, the more I realized how amazing they all are at their jobs,
Yeah.
how integral a part of the storytelling process they are, and how much I enjoyed being with them and how much I was learning from them. And then so I literally just picked up a camera one day and started shooting stuff. I think the original idea for, oh man, I've really enjoyed this, was actually quite a harrowing time in our family's life when we
Oh,
were being basically, we went through a load of abuse by this local guy who'd become obsessed with us and like firebombed our house and stuff like
what?
this. So yeah, so we ended up having to take a camcorder with us everywhere, right? So that we could get it all on tape and like when we went to court for when we went to court and stuff. I'm writing a book about it.
Wow.
But anyway, there was this one night, right, where we would always set up the camera to look outside the window of the front room. And one night it was raining and it just looked really dramatic as this camera pointed down this rainy road. And then a fire engine came up the road. And I was like, oh my word, that's such a cool shot. And
Yeah.
for me, that's where like the idea of being able to come up with cool visuals to tell a story came from. And then I got into acting and whatever. But then, yeah, it came from being on set and hanging around the crew and realizing that I wanted to have more of a say in what the story. Like as an actor,
Sure.
I felt
Sure.
like I was just helping other people tell their stories, and I realized I had all of these stories that I wanted to tell too. And the best way for me to do that was to actually take control of the stories
Sure.
that I was telling. So yeah, I went to film school and learned how to do it. I mean, I've learned more since film school than I ever learned in film school. Um, but yeah, so that was it for me, was realizing that I wanted to tell the stories that I want to tell, not just be part of someone else's story.
And I think that when you talk about that you had that almost like eureka moment of visuals, that is
Yeah,
something that I really love about your work is how visually beautiful it is. I always feel like you could pause one of your films and it would be just like a lovely still, you know? And and
that's such a
and
nice compliment. Thanks, man.
oh, yeah, no, that I really do, and I think it was something that. So I should clarify that a lot of the questions that I'm talking about with this third film actually are part of a discussion that I had with my wife Kristen last night when we watched it. So a lot of these questions are actually Kristen's questions, so I should
Okay,
credit them to
thanks,
Kristen.
Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen. And she made the point that if you watch your mum's film, she's just sitting left of frame, and when you watch your dad's film, he's sitting right of frame, which I can just bring up super quickly. So yeah, so people can see a still from things my father said, that documentary, and that
Look
when
at
you
him. He's just so amazing. I just love him so much. He's so great.
and when you and also he he's a legend, right? When you watch that documentary, you're like, oh my god, this guy is a legend. Um, and when you put
It's
those
so inspiring and challenging
oh
to me listening to him tell his story. Yeah.
and so just visually when you put those two stories together, it's like they're sitting next to each other in the same room, and that's like a subtlety that you wouldn't perhaps even get if you didn't watch the other film or whatever, but you take the time in your work to include that, right? And I just think that's so. What I guess what I'm saying is, how important is it to include things that perhaps people might not notice?
If it's important to you, then it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
I made a film that I'm sure 50% of it goes over people's heads, and they don't see half the stuff that I put in there. And I don't regret making the film, and I don't regret making those decisions, because at the time I felt like that was the story that I wanted to tell, and those were all of the elements that I wanted to include in that.
Mm.
I will say the story is perfectly clear,
Yeah.
just like the story is perfectly clear, but there were things that I wanted to put in there for people that are looking,
Mm.
um, to make it even to enhance it even further. And those were very important
Yeah.
to me at the time. So I think if they're important to you as a filmmaker, then they're important.
Cool. And we can wiggle back to Gav's question as well. So, have you always? You said you wanted to tell your stories, and you've wanted more ownership on them of them. So, have you always only told your stories, or have you worked on other scripts or other stories that people have brought to you? Or
I tell other people's stories every day of my life because that's my
mm,
job. So I make films for other people 95% of the time. And so the other 5% is for me to tell my stories. So whilst I have collaborated with other writers in the past, for me, and because I love the writing process so much, for me, the most enjoyable that thing that I can do, and like I was saying earlier, you've got to be doing it because you're enjoying it.
right.
Like if you're feeling too much pressure or anything like that, for me, I won't just won't. I'll stop working on that
Yeah.
project. So for me, it's always about there's this story that I want to tell, and because I love writing so much, generally I'll just write them myself. But Gav, if you've got a good one,
Exciting. Um, so maybe that leads us into like maybe your final little tip for people that are starting out. Like they've got a story, they've figured out how they want to tell it, but
yeah,
it's always about, can you finance, right? Like because unfortunately the world we live in is revolves around money. So like, how can you monetize? Is it important to monetize? Should you just do it as a hobby? Um, what are the options of monetizing? I don't know. I guess I don't fully know what my question is, other than like, when finances come into a passion, what do you do about that?
um, Martin Scorsese says if you want to get into filmmaking to make money, get out of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I am a filmmaker by trade, and I make money from it because filmmaking makes me happy, not because I want to make money from filmmaking. The
Mhm.
facts are, I have to make money to live in this world as I currently live in this world. And I want to do something that makes me happy to earn that money. So I'm a filmmaker. I have no interest in any of my short films making any money
Mm,
or anything like that. I don't like that. I want to tell stories and I want people to see those stories. And I don't want to make money from them
yeah.
because the stories are there because I need to tell them. Um, in terms of budgets, I'm going to use my first film as an example again. Like me and Neil, my brother, made that film, and all we spent on it was bus fare and train fare.
Wait, which film was this? Sorry.
So this is a film called My Legendary Girlfriend, and it's on my YouTube channel,
Cool.
and it's the first short film that I ever finished. Like I did sketches and stuff like that, but it was the first. So basically, one night my brother said to me, I was like bored in my flat in London. I just moved to London and I was bored, and he was like, "How are you bored? Write a film." So I wrote this film overnight and I sent it to him, and we worked on it and everything, and we shot it on a camcorder. Literally didn't spend any money on anything apart from train fare and bus fare, because there's some scenes on a train and some scenes on a bus. The rest of it, we didn't spend anything. We didn't buy anything. We didn't hire any crew. We didn't do anything. It was me and him. and we didn't spend any money on it. And still, it's the most popular film
Yeah.
that I've ever made.
Yeah.
And so my response will always be, you don't need to spend money on film. You just don't need to. And
Yeah.
whether I made that film 20 years ago or I was making it today, the fact is still true. You do not need to spend money to make a film. But if you have to or you want to, there are plenty of ways that you can do it. You can look for benefactors, which are people who want to give you money to make your work. You can crowdfund, which I've done before, to basically ask people to help you financially with making your film.
Yeah.
You can save up. So
Sure.
if I feel like I need to spend money on a film, basically what I do is I use my income from my day job to supplement my short films. So I save up and I go, okay, I know I've got X amount of my savings that I can spend on this film now.
And
Um,
your day job is a filmmaker, but it's
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than
So I
your
do
own
the
projects. It's
Yeah, exactly. So I do
yeah,
corporate and commercial film work for clients and
right.
businesses and etc. to make money, and then I will use that money that I've earned to live because we need to pay bills, etc. But then whatever savings I can pull out of that will go towards my short films. But I always try and spend as little as I can on short films because I
Yeah.
am of the philosophy that you don't need to spend money on short films to tell a good story. It looking great and having a good camera, etc., is all a bonus.
Yeah.
It's all about the story.
So I think that's quite exciting, right? Because anybody that's watching that does fancy getting started, that's quite a hopeful message because it could mean that they could just go out with their phone right now, or if they don't have, obviously phones are super expensive, but you could get a piece of kit that doesn't need to cost that much money and shoot something. Is I guess
100%.
the message. Yeah.
100%. And a lot of filmmakers will say, "Oh, but I need these props and I need this costume and I need to pay for this location." No, you don't. Change all of it. Change the
Mm.
location to one that you don't have to pay for. Change it so that your character doesn't need to wear that. Challenge yourself to change your story to make it work for you. You don't need to be set in those restrictions. Think creatively about it, and you can come up with a final film that is as good, if not better, than your original idea because you've been forced to think creatively about it.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, that would be my challenge to anyone that wants to make a film. Go and do it for no money.
Yeah. Just to see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. That's super cool, man. So I feel like that's quite a good way to draw the stream to an end is this message of just do it, right? Just do it.
100%. Just do it. If you've got it in your heart that you want to be a filmmaker and you want to make films, just do it. If you don't have a phone that can record video, ask a friend. Be
Hmm.
resourceful. Ask a
Yeah.
friend that's got one who can. Pull in favors from
Yeah.
people. You can just go out and make a film tomorrow. 100%.
That's really cool. Well, I think we definitely have to call it there. I always try and keep my streams to an hour or under an hour, and I cannot hang out with Key and keep it to an hour because I love him too much. So we're at an hour and 40, so we probably have to call it there.
Cool.
Um, how can people see more of your work, Key? I know I'll be sitting down to watch some more things after this stream. So where can people go and see some Key?
You can see some Key on my website, which is keeramsorrun.com. That's got my commercial stuff on there. But for me, I'm on Twitch all the time right here. I'm Kee Ramsorrun. So click on my name in the chat and follow me and stuff. I need followers. You can see me on YouTube as Key 1000, which is where you can see that film, My Legendary Girlfriend, which is the first film I ever made.
Fun, yeah.
And
Yeah.
those places.
All that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We've had some lovely questions come in, and it's always just lovely to see you in the live chat, always. So thank you so much.
Totally is. When I'm streaming, that's what brings it alive for me, Kev, is the live chat, and it's
It really,
about yeah.
I really agree, mate. And even when I'm doing like, the theatre shows and stuff like
Hmm.
that, I love seeing the live chat blow up during the
Yeah.
show. So everybody who's watching, just make sure you blow up live chats for streamers because it makes the world go round. As Key said, follows are always useful. So you can follow Key on the bits he said. You can follow me on Streaming Theatre or various social media like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. If you enjoyed the show, consider donating. It helps Key and me so much. Like helps us make new projects and stuff like that. So if you feel inclined, that would be lovely. Um, Other than that, I think it's time to say goodbye. We've got lots of projects coming up. We've got Midsummer Night's Dream coming up in what's that, Key? A week? It is. It's next
Yeah, six
Friday.
days
So
next
this is a
Friday.
project Key and I are working on together with the fabulous company Odd Socks Productions. Key is the director of photography and editor of Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm directing, and Odd Socks are acting in a little collaboration piece that we're working on. Very exciting. We've got The Tempest coming up a few weeks after that by Globetrotting Shakespeare. That's going to be very exciting. Actors from all over the world combining into a magical Shakespearean smush. I'm working on some other projects as well. We've got Romeo and Juliet coming in July and a couple of other things that I'm trying to book currently. So follow us on social media to see what happens and check back in. Thank you so much, Key. Love you always, mate.
Thank you, everyone. Loved it.
Yay. And see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.